Welcome. I am David Crane. I am interim chair for the committee for the next few months, I believe. It's the Transportation, Public Safety, and the Environment. That may not be the whole name of the committee. I don't think I need to state that perfectly correctly. So that's that. And I'm now going to let Michelle read the guidelines for how we run Zoom meetings. Thank you.
Thanks, David. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded. Please sign into the chat with your name and affiliation if relevant. And if you'd like to speak, please note which item you'd like to speak on. Note that the chat will only go to the host and co-host, and it's for use for signing in, signing up to speak, or asking about technical issues. The chair will announce when each agenda item is up for public comment. Essentially, the run of show will be the item will be presented. Either likely the committee will discuss it, and then we'll go to public comment, but that's up to the chair. Each speaker will have up to a 2-minute time limit, which is at the discretion of the chair. If you're representing a group, please select no more than 2 folks to speak on behalf of your point of view. We can note how many people are here to support that view. Please keep yourself muted. Otherwise, we will mute you to stop from background noise. I think that's it. Go ahead, David.
But got away from me. Thank you. So I think I neglected to say that it's the February 2022 meeting of the committee. So the first order of business would be approval of the minutes if there are no more changes, but I am hoping that that was sent out to the committee because David didn't do it. Did committee receive it?
I believe they did.
That's wonderful. If the committee has no changes that they think we need to make in the minutes, then we will consider them approved. Great. I need to now ask Wendy, who is on and is our minute taker, secretary, correct, Wendy? If we need to take a roll call for the committee.
David Crane.
Here.
Michelle Cooper-Smith.
Present.
Wendy Lee, present. Lee Berman.
Present.
Oh, you're on this list twice, David. Tariq Daru. Tariq.
Doesn't appear.
And Kenyelle Hernandez. Kenyelle? I don't see her. Okay. Thank you very much.
It sounded like someone unmuted when you were calling for Tariq again. Was that Tariq?
Let me see. Tariq, are you there?
I think it was me saying I don't see him.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we're going to jump into items 2 and 3 because, all right, we have, wow, we're going to do 2, I'm sorry. Requested support for DOT traffic redesign plans for Grand and Clinton Street. So we're going to have a little discussion of this. I don't know if DOT has prepared a quick summary. We don't need it, but if they have, I would, let them do that. Otherwise, I'm going to let Carl.
Oh no, I was just going to say that we don't. So go ahead and, but here to listen and provide answer any questions.
Okay, so I think the committee is going to want to discuss some details. We'll go to the public pretty quick afterwards if the committee doesn't get into it. But the proposal, in a nutshell, is to not allow traffic to turn right off of Grand onto Clinton, and instead that traffic would turn right onto Norfolk Street, which would be a 2-lane approach to Delancey and then the bridge. And there would be changes made for like the bike lane to make that self-reinforcing. And these are, I'm getting beyond the nutshell description, but that is the nutshell description of what DOT has proposed, and we are going to be commenting on tonight. So committee, show hands if you're wanting to speak about this. If not, I'll go to public. Michelle.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Carl, for presenting last time and for coming back. So I have two main questions. One thing that we actually didn't discuss last time, but I noticed, or a community member pointed out, was in the appendix, is that DOT is expecting I did the math with the help of a calculator, a 13% increase in cars overall using the Grand Street corridor subsequent to this plan. So more than doubling the number of cars that currently use Norfolk and reducing the number of cars at Clinton, but overall increase of 13% cars running through this corridor daily. That comes with a shorter time flow for cars here and a longer time flow for cars on Houston, according to the appendix. So what I'm wondering is, why does DOT predict that increase in car traffic here? Is it because the sort of, if we build it, they will come situation, or is there some other reason?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's because this plan is more efficient in moving traffic, more traffic will be drawn to the route. It's still expected that Norfolk will be able to handle all this vehicle traffic once it's up to 2 lanes. But that is the reason why we expect those volumes to be increased a little bit, is because the travel times will be improved, and so more drivers will take it. That's sort of the challenge with traffic.
Okay, so from my understanding of this, you're expecting more than double the number of cars to use Norfolk going forward. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, but you're only doubling the space.
Yeah, so for the last block between Broome and Delancey,
Right.
the volume will be essentially doubled, and we are doubling the number of lanes. But it's a more efficient intersection to get onto Delancey Street because there's no crosswalk on the east side of the crossing there from across Delancey. So all those vehicles will be able to just be processed through. So
sure,
it's below what the intersection can handle.
Okay, David, is it okay if I show a video from the intersection at the current capacity to show how I don't think that this is going to work just from being there often?
Yeah, sure. So you're
Okay.
running a video you have? Great.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a video from about 5:30 in December. The intersection of Norfolk and Broome, and this is with 1 lane, obviously.
This commentary, that white van had a red light.
Oops, sorry. So this is with the current capacity, and we're going to get more than double the number of cars, but only double the capacity. Sorry, this is with the current capacity. We're going to get double the capacity, but we're going to get more than double the cars. And you can see, obviously, and everyone who lives here knows that there's about to be 3 new buildings right here, including a senior building. And also there's a loading zone there on Norfolk for Essex Market. I've been skeptical of this proposal about widening. I think that we had this in like March 2020 that DOT came to talk about the potential for doubling the space at Norfolk, and I was skeptical then. And I've spent the last 2 years documenting how bad it is, and I'm skeptical. I continue to be skeptical that this will work because cars do not follow the rules, as we can see here once they start getting frustrated. The intersection at Broome and Essex is extremely dangerous. You cannot cross there on the crosswalk. You will get hit by, you will almost get hit by a car. You have to wait until you actually have a red light. I just don't see how this is better. So my other question is, why widen Norfolk? Don't we want to do the opposite of if we build it, they will come? Don't we want to discourage cars from using this route on, very small neighborhood streets? Like, have you done a modeling for not widening Norfolk, but keeping the ban on the right turn from Grand onto Clinton?
So, okay, so, right, so if I understand it, so you're saying, right, so instead of, so Norfolk used to be 2 lanes, so what we're talking about is restoring it to the 2 lanes that it had previously been. And right, and I understand your point that because we're improving the traffic flow, more traffic is gonna go through it because it's gonna be the preferred route, which is, on one hand, that's what our objective is to move it off of, take some of the traffic off of Clinton Street where it's not able to be totally processed, and because of that, it's spilling back and going throughout the neighborhood, and move it over to Norfolk. By doing so, we're also going to be able to change the signal time a little bit, so it will be a little bit more than doubled in capacity, just in terms of the amount of green time that we can provide for the intersection. And of course, there won't be all the the construction and other issues with that block that may be reducing the efficiency a little bit. But no, we haven't modeled it that way. I mean, what that would do potentially is, it would push some of the traffic that we're assuming is going to reroute from Houston or from other points back possibly on those routes, but it would also back up onto Grand Street just like it's doing today with the Clinton Street thing, where you have that pinch point, and it's creating the same issue. It's a good question. I will ask our modeler about that and get some more feedback.
Okay, thank you. Because I just really don't think personally that we should be encouraging more cars to come here. I mean, we heard from the community last time that they think that streets like Houston, like Delancey, are the right places for this type of traffic because they're very wide. And like that intersection, Norfolk and Broome, is already bad. There's about to be so many more people there. And I can't imagine that like Essex Market and other business owners, they're trying to create a huge, experience there for folks to visit, go to the market line, et cetera. Like I cannot imagine that type of traffic situation is one that anyone really wants there. So I appreciate your input, Carl. Thank you.
Are there community members, I'm going to jump in then. By the way, I live down here now, so it's part of my problem too. And I guess personally, the thing that I see impacting me the most is the very dangerous pedestrian crossing at Clinton and Grand. And a lot of people want to do that, and there's just no break in the cars. There may be a small leading pedestrian indicator, but I pointed out that car that was making a left turn off Broome onto Norfolk against the light. That happens all the time. That happens all the time at Clinton and Grand right now. And that is bad. So I saw that, if they don't allow the turn, at least there'll be a whole half of a cycle where people can cross when they've got the white walk signal at Clinton and Grand. What I didn't realize is that at rush hour, at least, it's going to be the same situation is going to attain at Norfolk and Broome. So I don't know, pushing the problem around. It's 2 blocks further for me, though. I'm totally being facetious when I say that. Yeah, I would love to be safer at all intersections. I'm comfortable about pushing a problem somewhere else. I will say that as far as having too many cars on Grand, and this is again my personal observation, I don't hear the horn honking traffic jams that I was fearing when we were discussing moving down here. I was telling my husband, no way can we live on Grand Street. No way. I don't see it. I don't hear it. Maybe I'm losing my hearing as well as my vision. I mean, I hear an occasional horn honk, but my goodness, I lived in the East Village. What I do see are cars moving too quickly up Grand Street when it's not congested yet. And then when there is congestion, yeah, I see the cars backing up all the way down to Columbia where I am and further, really at the height of the rush hour. I don't know that that's a safety issue because those cars are at least they're obeying the lights, seems to me, at least largely. I'm rambling a little bit here. I am uncomfortable with moving this problem. Other committee members? Not, I'm going to start going to the public. And actually, I will start with Sandra since Sandra's a board member. Sandra, I'll let you speak, and then I'll start with the hands in the order I saw them.
Okay, pardon the mask, I have someone in my office. What I want to talk to you about is your response time during emergencies on that particular corner as well. Last year, the traffic lights went out and I had to wind up calling Susan. I called the New York City Police Department. They felt it was their responsibility. Couldn't get in contact with anyone until Susan reached out to DOT. There has to be better response time because like David said, it's a very dangerous corner. The traffic, especially at about 8 o'clock PM, there is no control. There is no monitoring. There are no guards there. There are no crossing people there. And when they're there, you know, they're not really responsive or a lot of times attentive to what's going on. So I would request that you have more attention paid to when emergencies happen as well, your response time and keeping your guards on point with what's going on actually at the time. Thank you.
Lee and then Trevor.
So to echo some of what David mentioned, you know, as many of us mentioned at the last meeting, pushing this down 2 blocks only literally kicks the can down the road. In addition, you're now adding additional volume to Broome Street, Broome in Norfolk, where you still have this basically a jug handle. So even with 2 lanes now, you're creating more gridlock. In addition, at last month's meeting, a month ago, I and others expressed frustration in the lack of enforcement down here, whether it's Brandon Clinton or other parts of the neighborhood, but specifically Brandon Clinton Street. And you had a month where you could have come and provided a traffic agent at various hours. We all expressed, you know, from 3 o'clock until about 8 o'clock, it's extremely dangerous and crowded, and even for a couple of weeks. And we haven't had any additional, or I think any traffic agents added, even as a test. So, you know, as we continue offering up recommendations, they continue to be ignored. Although I appreciate you coming to us with something, as the community has offered you suggestion after suggestion, to only come up with, let's push it down to Norfolk Street, isn't sufficient. It really isn't. So we've been working on this now for what, 5 or 6 years, and we really needed more, and we needed more sooner. Thank you.
Trevor, you want to go? And then I'm going to go with the patient public members.
Sure, thank you. I've been attending transportation meetings in addition to my other meetings for at least 2 years. And going back 2 years ago, I asked for modeling for South Street, from South Street going up on Clinton, to see how the other areas would be affected. Every single meeting I was told we will bring that to the next meeting. So I was hoping in the appendix I would see modeling, and that's what DOT does, modeling. And Carl, you mentioned that there is some modeling done, and even at the last month meeting, you indicated you would bring modeling to show where this traffic would be diverted to. But I still don't see it, and I don't understand it. It almost seems like you're hiding where this traffic would go, whether it would be forced to go from South Street up Clinton or other areas. And I understand that you're trying to split this traffic into different areas, but I've asked a very simple request, what DOT does, and they do a pretty good job of it. I've seen certain modeling done for the tolling at those meetings because they give some pretty good models, but I haven't seen one single model that talks about where this other traffic is anticipated to go. So I'm just asking, where is that modeling you promised from last month?
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. I did make a note of that, and I spoke with our modeler about this and asked him how far they modeled. He said they did not model down to East Broadway. and that they distributed the traffic. They use the inputs for the traffic just based on the way that they distribute traffic through the network, which is not through the model, but they use like existing traffic splits just from our data streams. And so unfortunately, there's no like traffic model that goes that far, because it's a big intensive thing to do that, which you do with congestion pricing. But in this case, you do a smaller type of traffic model that's more in the area. What he did say is that all the assumptions going into the model is that it's based off of the way this new traffic plan. And so I hear you guys fully, and that that there's obviously traffic is an issue, and it's going to continue to be an issue. And this is what we've said every time, is that the traffic to the bridge, the demand to get onto Delancey and to the bridge is greater than the traffic than what the street network can handle. And we can't just it's got to go somewhere. And so what our modeler shows is that that Norfolk is a better solution. At least it takes away that pinch point that was Clinton Street, and that the traffic from the south should be coming up other streets like Essex, and entering from there instead of coming all the way over to Clinton Street, which is where it was coming from before.
Okay, Mike, and I understand that, but my concern and what I expressed about 2 years ago was the traffic coming off of south of Clinton, because the initial request, or what DOT initially said, is we'd like to push it to South Street and have people split that traffic between Clinton, Montgomery, Rutgers Slip, and Pike. Pike is already congested. So I asked 2 years ago to see modeling, because they didn't just come up with that theory unless they just said this is what we think. But I'm not really talking about East Broadway or Broome or those areas. I'm talking about traffic coming up Clinton from south, because it is already congested up that street.
Right. Well, and with Clinton specifically, I think it will be less. The purpose of banning that turn from Grand Street onto Clinton is that then it opens up extra capacity on Clinton Street itself, and so then you don't have those vehicles blocking the intersections, and you can move it through the street network more efficiently.
Okay, so you think that traffic will be less going northbound on Clinton Street from South Street?
The congestion may be less, yeah,
but more vehicles.
But the same, likely around the same amount of vehicles is what the modeler said.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm now going to go, because I'm hoping Zoom is keeping track of the order in which people raise their hands. I'm going to start from the left. Matthew.
Hi, thank you. I just want to confirm that the idea.
I'm so sorry. Let me just, if we can keep these to a couple minutes, I would appreciate it. Go.
I wanted to confirm that the two-way opening up Norfolk Street 2 ways is only between Broome and Delancey Street, and not Grand and Delancey Street. Is that correct, Carl?
I'm sorry, Matthew, could you say that again?
Opening up Norfolk Street for 2 ways is only for Broome, between Broome and Delancey, or is it for Grand and Delancey on Norfolk?
It's 2 lanes, but just between Broome and Delancey.
Okay, so when
two lanes, not 2-way, 2 lanes.
So anybody going west on Grand Street, it's going to make a right turn on 1 lane on Norfolk. When they cross over Broome Street, then it'll be opened up to 2 lanes, correct? Which I would like to, based on what Michelle said in the past, you have the loading dock on the left, and you're going to have the entrance on the right, and you're going to have Ubers on the right, and you're going to have trucks waiting for the left. So in reality, that 2 lane that you're projecting to open up will probably be a half a lane going forward. And I just wanted to say, yes, Trevor, South Street, South and Clinton, Clinton and Madison, Clinton and Henry Street, Clinton and East Broadway, Grand and Jackson, pushing it up 2 more blocks, more cars, it just has a negative effect going east, going south, going everywhere in our neighborhood. And I think this is going to be a horrible plan. But, hopefully the Community Board 3 will vote the right way. Thank you for my time.
Thank you. Katie.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Archer, and I'm representing Essex Crossing. I've met a few of you, so hello. Just to echo Michelle's comments, we're extremely concerned about pedestrian safety in the area. You know, Essex Crossing has brought 900 new apartments to the area, and with the Go Broom project, there's just going to be so many more pedestrians. I wanted to know, in addition to your proposed widening of Norfolk Street, which, first of all, forgive my ignorance, but are you physically widening the street? Because right now our construction teams are pouring new concrete and about to completely reconstruct the roadway. But also, are there going to be additional pedestrian safety measures in place? You know, are there going to be traffic cameras for any of the cars that are gunning it to get through the light and speeding? We have such an issue with this on Clinton Street. Susan and I have met with DOT since I've been in this job for 6 years, probably once a year, to talk about how extremely dangerous Clinton Street is. We have a senior citizen building right there. There's no pedestrian crosswalk. Will there be additional safety measures such as cameras, as I mentioned, speed bumps, anything like that, either on the Norfolk side, or also I wanted to talk about Clinton Street and putting in speed bumps or a stop sign at Broome and Clinton, because it's just a complete nightmare over there. And we realized that Essex Crossing definitely adds to some of the issues with our loading docks on Clinton Street and on Norfolk Street. So I'm just curious to see how you plan on, you know, working on pedestrian safety there.
So the public space unit here is working on separate projects that will be focused on pedestrian safety and pedestrianization of that area. So that will continue to be a focus there. I don't have an answer on specifically if there are any new automated enforcement cameras going in, but for Clinton and Broome Street, we have been approved to put in a traffic signal there. So specifically because of the pedestrian safety issue. So that is being designed now and you know, is put in the queue to be installed.
Do you know what the timeline is for that? How long will that take?
I was told the fall. So this year sometime.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Jeremy?
Yeah, thanks. Two quick things. One is I still think the problem down here is that we're trying to push bridge traffic onto small streets that are not appropriate for bridge traffic. And the idea of just opening up another small street for bridge traffic, it just doesn't get us to a place where we're changing the dynamics of the problem. Second thing is a little bit more of a question. I want to make sure that we're thinking about this whole system, that we're improving the street for as many of the people who live down here as possible. Part of that, I think, would be improving the M14A, giving the M14A a dedicated lane going west on Grand Street, and then up Essex Street to meet up with some of the improvements that were made uptown. I don't understand how we can talk through a traffic plan without thinking about that stuff being primary. So I'm just wondering if you know of any plans or thoughts around the M14A bus down here.
I do know that the Transit Development Group is working on bus improvements generally for the M14A. And so, you know, we'll have to see what they have planned for that. But again, with Grand Street, that if the travel times will be improved, and that should also help bus riders. So at least for the Grand Street corridor, travel, bus speeds and travel times should be improved with this plan. In addition to the other M14A improvements that Transit Development is working on.
I guess I just request that we start by prioritizing the bus, and then after that, figure out what to do with the bridge traffic. Just think that's a lot more important.
So Bill, before you get going, I did forward your survey results to the committee, but you can start speaking.
Okay, thank you. What David's referring to is some comments I had asking the committee to defer this proposal. And we did a little bit of survey. It's not perfect because it's small, but we have at least some data we can show people. Basically, what it is that we had people had requests for traffic management that is nowhere on this plan. One is for a dedicated bus lane on westbound Grand Street. If those of you who have ever taken the M14A, as Jeremy referred to it, it gets backed up really badly on the traffic. I don't see it's going to be improved by just pushing down 2 blocks. Number 2 item was better NYPD commitment for better enforcement. I don't think that the community board should look at a Department of Transportation plan unless the NYPD and the Traffic Bureau is there also to consult, because saying something self-enforcing doesn't work. There's also some issues, David. If you want to hear horn honking, come around the corner on Clinton Street during rush hour, because that's where you hear the horn honking. But there's also a really bad intersection down on Grand Street in Madison. Some neighbors I know had sent in a video, I think actually one of them is here, showing how cars go into the oncoming lane in order to get off the traffic in Grand Street to go down Madison Street. I mean, a lot. These videos, one was for 45 minutes and probably showed 20. I mean, the video is 2 minutes long, probably showed 20 cars go over into the oncoming lane in just the short 2-minute video. They also was requested protected bike lanes, both on Clinton and Grand Street. There's already a Grand Street bike lane, but it's not protected everywhere. I'm sorry, on Clinton Street. It's not protected everywhere, but also the thought was that there should be a protected bike lane. It could be a double lane that's on the south side of the street, south side, which would leave more room for the westbound traffic. And also, I'll finish up, turning Essex Crossing into a real pedestrian plaza. If we start sending up traffic up Norfolk now, it'll never happen. It's perfectly, it's like ready for being a pedestrian mall. They could have limited times for the deliveries in the truck docks, but no other personal car traffic. Make it a pedestrian mall that will work for people. But David, thank you for forwarding my note and reading it. I know it's a little long. I hope it was helpful, but please defer this proposal until they've had more chance to actually incorporate more things useful to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. It was an interesting one, so I forwarded it. So next is the iPhone. Is it you, Pat?
Yes, it's me. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see everyone here, and formerly Councilmember Margaret Chin's former staffer, not working right now. But thank you, Bill, for mentioning Madison and Grand Street shortcut, which was devastating. I understand that there is supposed to be a quick curb installation for cars to avoid that. Where it is on the installation queue for DOT, I do not know. When my last response from Jennifer Leung at DOT was that it's in the queue, but it's a long queue. It's like a NYCHA wait list. So we don't know where it is on the queue, but it is a very, very dangerous issue. There are a lot of young families. Never mind, there is a school right there. And young mothers crossing the street, they have the light and cars just whiz by. It's a miracle that there hasn't been a fatality. So, yes.
Thank you. So Alex, next.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm a new homeowner in the neighborhood, but a longtime renter, and I rented 2 years ago at the corner of Essex and Delancey, so I know this area very well, and I'm very concerned, like many of you. Carl, though, I get the challenges. At work, I have worked on a number of urban design and smart city focused projects. I get how difficult it is to balance local community with the macro congestion issues of the city. But picking Norfolk as a 2-lane road in this way just doesn't make any sense. It ignores the pretty spectacular development that's going on around it. And if it's successful, as you framed it, and moving more traffic through it, this is going to create a congested flow in an area that's literally being developed to be pedestrian friendly, right? Matthew hit the point earlier. You've got the loading docks, you've got the Uber drop-offs, but you have Essex Market, you have the expanding market line, you have commercial residents like Verizon, which just moved into a 100,000 square foot property. You've got condo developments, you've got new retail storefronts, and hopefully all this is really successful for small businesses in the area. But again, that brings foot traffic, and car traffic and noise congestion is going to have a ripple effect in an area where I don't think any of us want to see more vacant storefronts and unsuccessful small businesses in an area just because we're pushing bridge traffic through a street that candidly just can't support it. So that's my view. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, but I would highly encourage that modeling to take into account not just what's there right now, but what's going to be there 2, 4, 6 years from now, given all the things in development and all the pedestrian foot traffic that we're trying to encourage to come into that very area.
Thank you. Ariel.
Hi, everyone. I am Ariel from Councilmember Christopher Marte's office. I want to thank DOT for being present and addressing some of our concerns. Our office is glad that this is finally being addressed, and the movement on this issue. That it's sorry, my bad. I'm sorry again. Thank you for presenting, and our office is glad that there finally seems to be movement on this issue that's gone addressed for years and has only been getting worse with the opening of the Essex crossing. We want to echo a lot of the community's concerns that this plan is a starting point, but not likely to resolve this issue, especially as thousands of more people are going to move into this area with new developments. We think having traffic enforcement agents is critical to any plan's success, and not just at this corner of Norfolk, but at the surrounding corners as well. We will definitely be following up with DOT to make sure that we aren't just pushing traffic down a block, and that cycling and pedestrian safety is comprehensively addressed, as well as bus traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason, TA.
Hey there, how's it going?
Good.
Jason Gers, I live at Clinton and Grand and volunteer with Transportation Alternatives Manhattan. So just encourage everybody to think about what are the root causes here. The first root cause is demand for cars to go to the bridge. I think it's going to be hard to really do much about that except for congestion pricing. So I understand why people are concerned about it just moving the problem. But the second, root cause problem that we have here is the insufficient curbside access. Right, there's trucks blocking bike lanes on Clinton, trucks parked on the sidewalk on Norfolk Street. There's trucks and workers parked in the pedestrian plaza on Delancey Street, and all of that points to just a lack of basic access for delivery space for people to get delivered at Essex Market or Uber drop-offs and so on. And there's still a lot of parking regulations that are alternate sides, such as on Broome Street, or loading zones without meter or what have you, and changing the parking regulation to something that's within DOT's ability to influence in a short term. And the third, with the lack of enforcement, I'm very sympathetic to that. And I see the police that just sit in their car at Clinton and Grand playing Candy Crush and they don't do anything. But, I don't think that, asking another time is going to do anything about it. And I think without camera enforcement and physical protection for cyclists, especially on Clinton between Broome and Delancey, I don't see that the NYPD really helping the situation here. Thanks.
Thank you. Tommy.
Thanks. First of all, I agree with everyone has been saying that the plan really doesn't address the problem. And by passing it or pushing it forward, it gives a false impression that something has happened and been done. But I really want to know from Carl, at what point do you folks say that an intersection is so dangerous that it requires a traffic enforcement agent? Because clearly we had one and we lost it. And every other neighborhood that has major access, whether it's the 59th Street Bridge or the Midtown Tunnel or the Holland Tunnel, all have traffic agents in the neighborhood. We have 0. And I don't understand why that's happening. Can you say, will you go on the record with the NYPD?
Let's just say that that's a rhetorical question. Anyway.
No, it's not a rhetorical. I want to know if he'll go on the record. David, please.
Go ahead.
I want to know if he'll go on the record with the NYPD that these are dangerous intersections that require traffic enforcement agents. That's my question.
I understand. Clock's ticking. We're waiting. Still your time.
No, that's it. Carl, will you go on record with the NYPD that these are dangerous intersections that require NYPD or traffic enforcement?
So Carl, I guess, are you, is DOT advocating for having more traffic enforcement agents again? Or would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't,
Hi,
control the trip.
this is
Yeah, okay,
Jennifer.
thank
Can I speak on that?
Yeah.
So what happens is that a lot of the traffic enforcement assignments, they are done under the transportation division. That's something that our office can try to make the request, but it's not guaranteed. Like DOT itself, we do not, I don't think we ultimately have the power to just, assign traffic agents to any intersection, but we can certainly make a request on your behalf.
It's a different agency, right?
It's a different division. It's under the chief of transportation within the
No,
NYPD.
but my question is, does traffic ever say that an intersection is so dangerous that it requires immediate attention? Does DOT ever go on the record with the department saying that?
I think I'm going to go to Lee Berman now. Lee?
Go ahead.
Follow up on what Jen just said. Jen, can you tell us right now when DOT asked Department of Transportation or whomever you just mentioned for traffic agents here? Because I know that you have been asked by this committee and the community for a number of years at meeting after meeting and email after email to do just that, to please request traffic agents here. And so I'd like you to tell us, if you can, when you requested those, and have those requests been denied, ignored, or did those? Thank you.
I will say that in the past, I have requested on your behalf. I know at some point they did have some traffic agents, but you also have to understand that these traffic agents, they cannot be there at all times. I think they are, assigned there for certain shifts. Over time, we always try to see if they can try to, have someone at that location. But at the same time, we also try to reach out to the local precinct, because within the local precinct, there's also some traffic agents that can do, they do some traffic enforcement, they can do targeted enforcement, but they cannot be out there at all times. So that's additional targeted enforcement that we could also we're able to do.
But again, has there been a blanket request? And if not, why not? And can it be done? Can a blanket request? Because the community will tell you that we have not seen traffic agents for months and months or even longer. And I understand if they may be required to go to different sites or a tour here or a tour there, but this community has not seen any traffic agents at Grant and Clinton for a very long time. And again, I would ask, when did you ask? When did you put in a request? How was it responded?
I think I would like to reel us back to talk about what we need to talk about tonight, which is Norfolk and Clinton. I mean, I don't disagree with this, but let's reel this back. But actually, if there's no more discussion of that at the moment, what I really want to do is discuss item 3, and then we'll come back to what motions we want to pass, because it is a related thing. So if there's no objection to doing that. Item 3 on the agenda is the proposal that we.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, but I happen to live on Norfolk Street, off of Broome, between Broome and Grand. And nobody ever mentioned the fact that we have that bike, the city bike banks, bikes there. And at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning, when the young people come out of the bars and they're fully inebriated to the point where they're arguing, fighting, traffic is going by and so on and so forth. I've heard fights. I've heard so many horrible things have happened within that block, within this block here. And I'm like, nobody mentioned their safety. And I worry about that because there's too many tragedies happening here. And we're talking about right here in front of where 64 Norfolk Street is at. Too many things are happening here. What about them? What about protecting them? Nobody mentioned the fact that they're getting on their bikes and they're so drunk out of their mind that they're not paying attention to any street lights. We need to put that on the table as soon as possible because there's too many young lives being hurt and nobody's saying anything about it.
Thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
It's a pedestrian safety issue for sure, and that includes cyclists. Okay, so at the last month's meeting, we introduced a motion and decided to discuss it tonight, which would be to request protected bike lanes between South Street and Delancey Street. And that's the Clinton section of Clinton that we've been talking about tonight. So I don't know if there are general comments about that. There is a draft motion that I will want to introduce and discuss in a few minutes. Trevor, go.
Just want to know if you could define protected bike lane, because that can range from a raised curb to bollards to concrete barriers. And it's very narrow on Clinton Street, and especially between Clinton and Cherry Street. So how do you define a protected bike lane? That's it.
Yeah, Michelle, you might want to take this, but I think we offer up options as a sort of a menu of do something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a planner, so I don't know what would work there. But in the resolution, we say like it could include blah, blah, like multiple things because we don't know what would be the best way to do it. So.
But I agree that it's too narrow. I believe it's too narrow down there to, for instance, put a floating lane of parking so that the cyclists were between the curb and the parking. That I don't think there's enough down there at all. So that wouldn't even be in the cards. What is your fear, Trevor, or what is your recommendation?
No, I was just trying to get that definition first, because I know that stretch from Clinton to east to Cherry Street is very narrow. There's a city bike on one side and a two-way bike lane on the other side. Is that considered protected with bollards? Because if you add a concrete barrier to that, it makes it impossible to get to the left side of the street. So I'm just saying, and for emergency vehicles, if it's bollards or plastic bollards, that's a different story, because some of those lanes do have the plastic bollards, but if it's a raised curb or a concrete barrier, that might present challenges.
Right, they for sure will not block off emergency vehicle access, or they won't even block off street sweeper access, except for the curbside eating establishments. For something like a protected lane, they certainly those take priority. That the streets can be cleaned, that the emergency vehicles can get there, and then the streets can be cleaned. So I'm going to go to Susan. And
Just wanted to say if you read the resolution before discussing that, it might answer some of those questions or help you deal with it.
Right. So that's why I kind of want to get to bring that up so we can discuss it. So great. So Lingsha, I'm sorry, I butchered your name.
Thanks, David. Hi, good evening. My name is Lingsha Yi. I'm here on behalf of Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez. I just want to mention that first I want to thank DOT for the presentation and all the board members and community member for bringing up your concerns. I just want to mention that the Congresswoman have voiced her concerns about the traffic issues in this corridor, and which is complicated. As we know, there's spill over from the bridge that we, there's we need traffic congestion and charging to kick in this, and then there's also short-term, there's also fixes that can be done by having better designs and a better streetscape improvement. And Congresswoman had written letters to DOT on this issue. And she thanks DOT for the presentation and for the plan, but she, she would like for for DOT to work together with the community to do better, to look for more creative traffic calming initiatives, to increase pedestrian crossing with clear lines, enforcement, and to reduce or maybe eliminate truck traffic on narrow streets unless it's for needed local delivery. There shouldn't be pass-through traffic in narrow street. And she's going to have a meeting with the governor coming up soon, where she will discuss the the infrastructure spending priorities for the district on federal dollars, and then she will advocate for traffic reduction infrastructure investment in the district. Thank you. And then if you have any, like if the community board or DOT would have like any suggestions on the infrastructure funding, for this corridor, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have a draft motion that had been prepared. In order to, it's already 7:23 now. So to be efficient about this, what I would like to do is have someone move the draft motion so that we can have it in front of us and talk about it. And then I believe someone is prepared to move an amendment so that we can then clearly talk about our two options tonight. So if that makes sense, if there's someone on the committee who wants to move the draft, and then we can start. It's a draft motion that combines, I did not strong arm anyone to do it. So
I'll move the draft.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to second it, save time. So, and David cannot share this quickly because that's not my strong point. Technology is not.
I can share it. I can share this. Yeah.
I can share it too if you need.
Oh, Wendy, if you could do that, and then, listen, this is phrased as an approval, and there'll be a motion to amend it that would not do that. The motion that's about to be presented also combines the two, and I can talk about the reasons why we did that. The amendment would divide them into two. So let's be able to share.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, Michelle, are you a host?
I can just share it. Hold on.
What? And why don't we just take your amendment right now and put that up? We can see this. It's the amendment.
Oh, I can't see. I can't do both. I can only do one.
If
Okay.
you do-
So I moved to make an amendment to this draft resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, hold on.
And then now we'll be able to see between the mark out and the underlined additions, what's what. So when she's about to share, you're going to see, we'll go ahead and we'll read through it.
Okay, everyone can see what the track changes.
Yeah, so see, he's changed it from a motion for DOT to support to become a rejection of support for DOT plans. The track changes is showing up, well, all right, it's readable.
You should be able to see the the deletions here on the side. I can make the text bigger if that would be helpful.
So the whereas paragraphs are not changing up here, which is really the background about what they are considering. And what our reasons are. So anyway, the first paragraph, whereas it's summarizing the impacts on the community and on traffic, stemming from those conditions, I should say. Then there's a very short history, whereas things that they have done to try to mitigate these traffic volumes, and that they didn't fully address the problems. The third, whereas, they've come forth with proposed changes to nearby streets and intersections to mitigate at these issues, which noted below. First, that Norfolk between Broome and Delancey streets would reopen as a 2-lane street, a key factor for implementing the proposed plan. And then the last one, I'm gonna go ahead and read it. This is really detailing the change. Whereas to mitigate the above mentioned transportation and access issues, DOT proposes the following changes to the Grand Street and Clinton Street intersection and surrounding streets, which will split traffic between Clinton and Norfolk streets. Westbound traffic on Grand Street will be banned from turning right onto Clinton Street, which splits midbound, or I should say, which would split bridgebound traffic between Clinton Street and Norfolk Street. Restoring Norfolk Street as the primary access street to the bridge from westbound Grand Street is better because Norfolk can have 2 turn lanes since there's no crosswalk on the southeast intersection of Norfolk Street, Delancey Street. It allows more time to process vehicles at Clinton Street. Adds conflict-free bike and pedestrians crossing at Clinton Street and Grand Street. Adds a section of protected bike lanes in the westbound direction of Grand Street. And maintain Clinton Street access to the bridge for vehicles already driving northbound on Clinton Street. Following changes will prevent illegal right turns by westbound Grand Street traffic onto Clinton Street. Change existing Grand Street bike lane to a curbside parking protected bike lane in the westbound direction of Grand. A pedestrian island to the southeast side of the intersection to enhance protections for cyclists and pedestrians and increasing vehicle turn radius. Traffic enforcement agents to further deter illegal turns at Clinton Street and Grand Street. Yeah, that list continues. The westbound Grand Street bike lane will have a dedicated signal phase at Norfolk Street to prevent conflicts with a high volume of turning vehicles turning right from Grand Street to Norfolk Street. The intersection of Norfolk Street and Grand Street will also have a dedicated pedestrian signal phase. Additional loading zones and regulations to surrounding streets to reduce double parking and other loading issues. Approved traffic signal for Clinton Street and Broome Street intersection will improve pedestrian crossing once implemented. Additional Jersey barriers for the Clinton Street bike lane between Grand and Delancey streets, which still must be approved. I believe that means internally in DOT. And all right, let's cut to the changes. Okay, I said that the amendment would convert it from approval to not approving. So it would add the 2 whereases. Whereas DOT told Community Board 3 that more than 50% of vehicles using Grand Street are approaching the bridge and only some are of local origin. And whereas DOT predicts that the number of cars using the Grand Street corridor to approach the bridge will increase almost 13% from 1,130 cars, 760 to Clinton and 370 to Norfolk, to 1,280 cars, 735 to Norfolk and 545 to Clinton, once Norfolk Street has been widened. And okay, now it changes the primary and therefore be resolved. So it's adding in the does not support. Therefore, be resolved. Community Board 3 does not support in full DOT plans to mitigate traffic and safety at and near the intersection of Grand Street at Clinton Street as detailed above, especially plans to widen Norfolk Street. And the amendment would add this second, therefore. Community Board 3 requests that DOT return expediently with a plan to mitigate traffic and safety that centers residents, pedestrians, and cyclists and does not increase the volume of cars traveling through the neighborhood. And then the last thing is that it would separate motion of support for the bike lane from the resolution. The original one, they were combined into a single one. Committee. Do we want to discuss this? First, is it understood what's the question before us? When we vote, we'll either be choosing to accept all of these changes or we'll be voting to no, reject all of those changes and have it be the combined approval. Committee? Sorry, I'm not I don't know if I can, gallery, I can see it. Susan,
I wonder if you want to consider two of the other issues that were brought up by residents. And one was the, that there are plans for the transit that will impact this. And it seems that there are public space plans also. And the suggestion to look at everything together might be considered as part of the request.
okay. Yeah, we should consider that, but let's consider that secondarily. Let's first talk about whether we do we want to underline approve or disapprove of this. Is there more committee discussion? I'll go to Janice if not.
I can't figure out how to raise my hand. Can I just say 2 sentences about why I want to do this? I mean, obviously I want to because I'm the one who brought the amendment, but I think everyone heard what I said during the presentation. You know, I just don't think that this plan that we're hearing from takes into consideration the needs of the neighborhood enough. And I'm really, really concerned about what will happen to Norfolk and Broome if the 2 lanes are restored, given the changes that have happened since the road was last.
Are you responding to my comments?
No, we're talking about the amendments that are on the, no, not you.
I'm sorry.
The amendments that are on the floor right now for this. That's what I'm saying about why I support changing this from a support or not supporting the plan. So those are my 2 cents.
Adding it to your changes.
Yeah, no, I think David suggested we should discuss that after we discuss these proposed amendments. Yeah.
Kenyelle.
I just want to say that I agree with Michelle in terms of how this all affects the residents of the community, you know, from the ones who need to drive for ambulances and, you know, all those things have to be taken into account. And I agree with the amendment.
No other committee members yet? Janice, do you want to speak?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm actually a resident leader from Rutgers Houses, and my question is actually for Mr. Sundrum or anyone from the DOT. 2 weeks ago, there was a traffic sign that was erected on the property of Niger. It's a Detour North FDR. It's on the corner of Pike and Madison, but it's actually erected in the grass on the property of Niger. We would like to know, why is that sign there?
Can I ask,
authority?
Is this related? It sounds like a separate issue. How is this related to modifying this grand?
This is not related to what you're speaking of right now.
Okay, so
perhaps Jennifer could be get in touch with her. Jennifer could give her email and get in touch with her.
I'd appreciate it, Jennifer. Is that possible? And take it offline. Thank you so much.
Not a problem.
Janice, Jennifer is our representative to CB3 liaison, I believe is her role here tonight, and she can help you understand that. Thank you.
Okay, can she put her information in the chat?
I think that's the plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Put your handing in if you haven't gotten it. Okay, now, committee, is there any more discussion? What we're going to do in a moment then is vote, which there's so few of us. We can do it as a voice vote, roll call vote on whether to accept this amendment, which would turn the whole motion into 2. First, disapproval of the Norfolk changes. And secondly, we'll have a separate motion, which we can talk later about. We'll talk about both those 2 motions if we approve it. Is it clear what we're voting on? Wendy, you want to take that vote? Yes is we're going to disapprove. We're going to not approve. No is we're going to keep the original approval. Got the double negative?
Yeah, it took me a second. So then yes is like if you want to keep what we currently have right now.
No. Yes is agree with Michelle. We should be denying this.
Oh, okay.
So yes, I agree with Michelle, or no, let's keep approval.
Okay, got it. David Crane?
I'm going to vote last, please.
Okay. Michelle Coopersmith?
Yes.
Wendy Lee? Yes. Lee Berman?
A wholehearted yes.
Tariq Darrell? Is he in here? Don't see him. And Kenyelle?
Yes.
And David Crane.
Yes.
Okay. That is 5 yeses and 1 absent.
Okay, I disagree with with votes that come with descriptions. So I did do it a moment ago, but it kind of breaks my heart to do that because I was pretty excited last month, and I'm kind of glad that we took the time to look at it and people, presented, people thought about it, the public and committee. It was helpful. Sniff, sniff. So now let's talk strictly about item number 2. We've got this motion to deny in front of us. I'll just shorthand call it to deny, say that we do not support in full, in particular, the widening of Norfolk Street. Now, are there other things that we might want to add to this? Can we do that maybe quickly? Susan mentioned a couple. Maybe someone in the committee wants Susan to remind us about what those 2 things might be.
Yes, please. And should it be in a therefore?
If we wanted to take a look at something, I would say it does. I mean, they're going to respond to the therefore. The whereases are background, reasoning, evidence.
Well, the only thing is that DOT has said that they are looking at transit issues and they are looking at public space issues. So we might want to say, whereas they are in the process of having a separate plan for transit, and whereas they are in the process of having a separate public space study, therefore, CB3 requests that we see one master plan for the area, including transit, public space with traffic redesign.
If you could highlight those 3 paragraphs so that we know when you're done, what we want to update. So what is the separate plan for transit? Is that the M14A bus perhaps, or is that, what is that? So what is it specifically about? Susan?
I mean, Carl had mentioned that, but I had also heard about it.
Susan, I think this is the M14A, the Avenue A, Avenue D bus.
Yes.
That, we were supposed to come back to you soon, but I don't have an update yet, so I'll follow up on that.
And could you highlight those 3, the 2 whereases and the therefore, because we're actually going to, in a minute, have to at least informally vote. Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, could you explain what we're doing right now?
This is a possible next amendment to add to our, to add.
Deny.
Developing a separate transit plan for
M14A and D.
All right, I don't know what that is. I don't necessarily have a problem putting it there, but it just seems sparse on detail. Maybe that's necessarily so.
We don't have the detail.
Right. DOT is in the process of conducting a separate public space study for the neighborhood. Do you know the extent of that, like the scope?
I had no idea till I heard Carl mention it.
I mentioned it last time. It was, it's on Broome Street from Clinton to Orchard, and then Orchard as well. So like a T.
There you go.
Clinton and Orchard. Did, yeah. That's a pretty wide area, Clinton to Orchard. Yeah, so that's neighborhood. Can we add that? Space study for the neighborhood, roughly between Clinton and Orchard. You said a T just now?
You guys are the same ones that
Okay. So just grammatically, there's a double A at the A comprehensive at the beginning of that. And you don't need the naked therefore be resolved now, because you've moved that material down into the 3rd one. So now in yellow is a potential amendment. Kenyelle?
Can I ask to, like, so we can get a little more a little more on how that would affect Houston? Like, because this plan affects moving some traffic down to Houston, right?
It did say that there would be slight delays, additional delays on Houston, and I wasn't clear what would cause that. So you would like to know more details on that?
Yeah, just like for the next time when they come back.
Michelle, are you thinking about where to potentially write that?
Oh, should we put that in there, or is this just a request to Carl?
Either or, I'm not sure if this is the right time to put that in or not.
It might be, maybe it should be second, because I also want to put in there that they need to be looking, when they are coming back, they do need to be doing simulations as far south as South Street. It really is, the traffic coming off of South Street is on quite narrow streets up until you get to East Broadway. And I know that's actually what Trevor keeps bringing to us as a concern. So those ought to be tied together, I think. Asking for them to provide modeling explanations for these.
How would the pushing back affect north of West Delancey, right?
Yeah, north of Delancey, specifically on Houston, and south of East Broadway, specifically
Yes.
on Clinton Clinton is northbound from south to East Broadway, isn't it? Obviously, I'm new to the neighborhood. I think it's true.
I'm trying to figure it out myself.
I know where all the streets are. I just can't tell you which direction all of them.
Yeah, same.
How about that?
Including information about how producer we did. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
thank
So
you. Yeah, thank you.
This is therefore saying return expediently, and a lot of new stuff. Okay, the thing about expediently is, well, it was the pandemic, but we went a long time between the previous update. With a comprehensive plan that includes traffic redesign and public space study for the area roughly between Clinton Street and Orchard Street. Can we stick the roughly between up in the whereas about public space study before the neighborhood, roughly between? That's what I have heard. And then, this will flow better then if we do that.
David, I have a question for you.
Yes.
specifically About this.
Yes, Lee.
So with all the discussion that's gone on about the increase in congestion, to put in, asking DOT to look at separating, to create public space, thereby closing off some of these streets, that has the effect of increasing, creates additional traffic and additional congestion in this very area that we're trying to alleviate from. And whether it moves it over to Essex Street or increases it to Delancey Street, or it's those secondary unintended consequences. So I'm actually very concerned about that particular part, about using Essex Crossing and this area for the public space study.
Well, yeah. So I wouldn't conflate additional cars with additional congestion necessarily. If the cars are moving, if they're moving, the congestion will show up as this intersection will be degraded from a C to a D minus, because they end up coming up with the letter grading system. That's congestion. If it's increasing the number of vehicles, that has other impacts, but it doesn't necessarily cause congestion or the kinds of impacts that are congestion. Well, do you want to tease this out somehow in this, or do you think that this is going to be sufficient? I mean, I'm nervous about it too. Anytime that there's a change like this, even modeling doesn't say this is how it's going to be. It's a very valuable tool.
And whether we categorize it as congestion, volume, safe, dangerous, or pedestrian safety issues and cyclist safety issues, this is not the place to create closed streets for pedestrian plazas. Of all things that we have been discussing for years, this is the last area that we should be asking DOT to look at closing off additional roads.
Okay, this doesn't sound like the amendment or even the motion. Are you talking more generally about other ideas for grant?
Unless I'm confusing the process of conducting a separate public space study roughly between Clinton Street and Orchard Street.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I don't know what that is about either, but I certainly would want to know about it before we make too many decisions. Michelle.
Yeah, I just was gonna say, I don't think that we're asking for them to close it. I think Susan was just suggesting that given that this is all ongoing already, that DOT should come back to us with like a comprehensive snapshot of all of the stuff that they're doing right now. So it's not like totally piecemeal. Is that right, Susan?
That's exactly.
But and not to belabor the point, but I think they have their hands full. They haven't been able to come back with modeling that's been asked and so many other things. I don't know that I would want to task them with this at this point, but that's just me.
If I could just say my reasoning was, I don't think you can actually have a plan without looking at the complete plan. I don't think it works in pieces because things affect each other.
Right. The thing about asking them to model things, by the way, it's not like, that's not a trivial endeavor. They have to, they have to set, they may have a model build, but they have to run the model. They have to put in a lot of boundary conditions or whatever.
I call the question on this.
Thank you. Okay. Does anyone object to going to a vote on the amendment? Is everyone clear what the amendment is? We're going to vote on it. It's everything in yellow. So go ahead and do it as a roll call, Wendy, please. I think it's just easier than struggling to read raised hands.
Oh, David Crane.
Last, please.
Michelle Coopersmith.
Yes.
Wendy Lee, yes. Lee Berman.
Yes.
Tariq is still out. Kenyelle.
Yes.
And David Crane.
Yes, I should have done that with if there's no objection. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be efficient, failing. By the way, the reason I keep asking to vote last is since I'm the chair, I don't really want to feel like I'm pressuring someone. I'm not wambly. Well, not all the time. Okay. Is there anything else that we want to add to this? Or is it in shape for us to vote on whether to adopt this or not, which we'll just. I see no further discussion necessary on the first motion about Grand Norfolk. Should know since I'm parliamentarian, but I guess this is the vote that we record the roll call vote on. The other ones, we took them by roll call, but those were really just incidental or procedural motions. So those don't need to be in the minutes, if that's clear, Wendy. Could you take a up or down motion on the whole resolution, whether we're going to send it to the full board as is?
Okay, gotcha. So then this will be this is the motion to it.
This is the main motion.
Okay, understood. David Crane.
And please.
Michelle.
Yes.
Wendy Lee, yes. Lee Berman.
Yes.
And Kenyelle.
Yes.
David Crane.
Yes. So
Thank
now
you
let's
very
move to the second motion, which we separated, and that is the one about the bike lane proposal. So we can scroll down to that. How long is that? That's about a page. Is that the kind of thing I can read? Yes, I can read that aloud. Won't take too long. Motion supporting Clinton Street fully protected bike lane. Whereas the Clinton Street bike lane is a crucial bike artery for, I'm sorry, can we make it a little larger for me? Thank you. Well, you haven't done it yet. Oh, 250. Whereas the Clinton Street bike lane is a crucial bike artery for cyclists traveling between Manhattan and Brooklyn via the Williamsburg Bridge. And whereas the Clinton Street bike lane between South Street and East Houston Street is largely unprotected. Let me just ask, is that a mistype? Is that intentionally saying East Housing? Do we want to be discussing that far north, or is it intended to be Delancey?
That's what's on the agenda.
Okay. Is largely unprotected, either having no physical separation from the vehicular travel lanes being separated by weak plastic bollards, or having entrances wide enough to permit cars to travel in the bike lane. And whereas due to being unprotected, the Clinton Street bike lane is frequently blocked by cars, trucks, and other vehicles, impeding bike traffic and endangering cyclists and pedestrians using Clinton Street. And whereas blocked bike lanes specifically present a substantial risk to the safety of cyclists by forcing them from the bike lane into vehicle traffic lanes. And whereas blocked bike lanes contribute to traffic congestion and impede vehicle traffic by forcing cyclists into vehicle traffic lanes. Whereas structural changes are necessary to prevent the Clinton Street bike lane, to protect the Clinton Street bike lane, remedy the current dangerous situation, and promote safe and efficient transit for cyclists, pedestrians, and motorists. So therefore, be it resolved, in addition, we need to modify this language a bit. In addition to DOT's proposed to increase the number of, oh, maybe it's correct. Let me just start this again, resolved. In addition to DOT's proposal to increase the number of Jersey barriers protecting the existing Clinton Street bike lane between Grand Street and Delancey Street, Community Board 3 also supports fully protecting the Clinton Street bike lane between South Street and East Houston Street from incursions by vehicles with physical controls that may include Jersey barriers, static, not plastic bollards, and or raising the bike lanes above the street grade. Okay, so that is the motion on the floor. Yeah, I'll withhold my comments for now. Committee members, do you have comment? Trevor, go ahead.
Sure, and this is why I asked a question about what is a protected bike lane, because I don't think, I understand that street very well, but putting concrete barriers on the street on Clinton from south to Cherry presents a problem, and from Cherry to Madison, primarily because they're on both sides of that are NYCHA buildings that don't necessarily have an entrance to get there. And I don't know how the street would be clean if you I don't know, or if you make the lane more narrow. I don't know how you clean the left side of the street. If you're not sure about that, just look at the Google Street view to figure out how that would happen. But I'd like to ask DOT for that particular area, and I'm only talking about from south to Madison, what would be the protected or the recommended protected bike lane? If you're familiar with that area.
Yeah, let's do that and ask him. But first, Michelle, could you go, or Wendy, maybe, could you go above the title and hit a new line a couple of times to bring it all down across the page break? Great. Great. Yeah, DOT, what measures do you think, to be clear, this is not DOT's proposal, so they may not be prepared. You know, they certainly don't have an analysis of this, but DOT, could you comment to us about what kinds of measures would be taken in that kind of environment where it is very narrow? He's described currently there are plastic bollards separating and there's also the city bike installation at that one block. Trevor, I'm sorry, I just made a hash of what you just asked them. You want to do it again?
No, I get what you're asking, Trevor. And David, you're right that we haven't started. We're working on the design for this for this additional protection on here, but it's just being drafted now. So actually, I would love to hear your feedback on specifics like this and concerns about barriers and Jersey barriers would be is I think what we're looking at for a lot of the corridor potentially. Nothing is set yet, but that would be the goal. But of course, they offer good protection, but they also have their challenges. For one, they're not permeable, like you said. Like you cannot, you can't go through them mid-block, or if you need to access the block, they take up a lot of width, and it does make street sweeping and cleaning a little bit more difficult. So we do need to talk to our partners at DSNY about how that lane could be maintained. So that's part of the ongoing discussion and one of the big challenges. Another type of tool that we could put in quickly would be the quick curb, which is, it's the more robust type of plastic barrier. So they still are like the plastic flex post, but they have like a much more substantial metal base, and it's a more continuous piece of like a barrier type. So that would be something that we would look at as well. Yeah, I mean, we're just, I'm listening in to give it back to the folks who are designing this. So, any specific feedback like that is helpful, but it would be primarily Jersey barrier and quick curb, I think.
All right, thanks. I didn't even know it was under design, and I see someone who actually lives there in that area, so I prefer to let that person speak, because I think I've asked my question.
Yeah, Raphael, I'm going to ask you to speak, and then I want to ask a follow-up here too. Thanks. Raphael? Oh, unmute.
The problem to do those barrier is sometimes we get the ambulance and there's a lot of traffic in the road and the ambulance have to use the bike lane to go through. And this, if they put this barrier, it probably create another problem for the ambulance.
Yeah, I actually, the phrase here where it says having entrances wide enough to prevent cars to travel on the bike lane, they will always do that because the bike lane has to be usable by ambulances and street sweepers. So I'm not really sure that, I mean, yes, it's a true thing. They do have entrances wide enough. They always will. We can't really ask for anything other than that. We won't get it.
Yeah, but also, although this is especially Clinton between Cherry and Madison, it's a very kind of family oriented. People never cross in the street. So if you want to close the street, so that also, especially with the elderly, is going to create another problem.
Yeah, this would not close the street. It would restrict regular car motions in and out of the bike lane. And it would make it really obvious that you shouldn't be parking in the bike lane. That's the kind of thing it does mostly. Now, a truly protected lane makes it almost impossible to do that unless you are willfully driving, think of First Avenue, the separation there, where you got the bike lane between parked cars and that's a truly protected lane.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, if I can, so to follow up, Carl, you said this is being looked at. Can I ask if that's happening because we brought it up last month or because we sent a resolution a year or two ago? I believe we did.
Yeah. The scope has been expanded because of what you said last month. So, we're looking at south to Delancey now, which I don't know that we would have done that previously. So I would say that it's mostly based on what you brought up last month, but also there's just a big push about having better protected bike lane barriers and in general. And this is one of the major corridors that we thought of initially when we got the additional ability to add these. So I'm not saying that this is going to get it yet. Like we're still in the design process, and we still need to make sure that our partners can keep these clean. And there's a lot of other issues. So we're not announcing that it's getting it necessarily, but we hope to, and that's what we're working towards.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So that, in my mind, that backs up why we should make this motion, because we're also aware that there's a push for things, and we wanted to make sure that this would be considered. Wow. Okay, I just supported a motion and put up my reasons why. Sorry about that. Trevor, you still want?
Just want to add for that location in particular between South and all the way up to Madison, especially between South and Cherry, which I don't think can handle a concrete barrier, maybe a raised, but definitely not a concrete barrier because the street is just too narrow. And also between, and I'm drawing a blank where the stores are, I don't remember, but there's another very narrow street one way where it would be very difficult to put concrete barriers. And just be aware that there's a residential neighborhood The other thing, I'm just going to mention this just slightly off topic. I mean, it's amazing that and it's good that, you take a recommendation and you move forward with it. So by the next month, you're already talking about design. I just wanted to mention the Pike Island Street bike lane has been horrendous for the last 10 years. And we've been talking about it. And I don't know how that doesn't get on the radar, but we mentioned this briefly, and now you want to put up protected bike lanes on Clinton and Madison. Pike to Pike Street bike lane is still a mess, but that's just another comment. That's all I have, Jay.
I have my doubts that anything can be done north of Houston. That I travel that pretty often. It's really tight. I don't mind putting it in here so that maybe they come up with something, but I will say, I believe that's a stretch. Any other discussion from the committee? Maybe the public wants to chime in. It is quite late. It's 8 o'clock, but any more discussion? So I've already said what I think this motion is going to do. So there you have it. That's the purpose for it. Your hands up again, Trevor? We're still up. Okay, I think we'll go to a vote then. So this is a vote on the motion as written here. There's a few, tiny grammatical changes, but as written with the red markup in it. Sorry, Wendy, do you want to take a roll call vote for us?
Okay, and should I save you for last as well?
Thank you.
Michelle?
Yes.
Wendy Lee, yes. Lee Berman?
Yes.
Tariq, is he still, I still don't see him. And Kenyelle?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And David Crane?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so now if I can get out of the Zoom window, we have two items which are again very closely related. Turns out more closely than the others. They involve a bus parking, not parking, a bus stop permit. Let me read something I had prepared by way of background about what is this kind of an item. We used to get these a lot. We maybe we're going to get a few more. Here we go. Shouldn't take more than a minute or two. New York City regulates curbside operation of intercity buses with a DOT permit system. CB3 has a 45-day comment period for each proposed permit for bus stop locations. This permit system went into effect 9 years ago after many years of CB3 advocacy. Here is how the DOT process works. First, all bus stop applications are evaluated by DOT with a focus on traffic flow and safety. Only proposed locations that pass DOT's technical evaluation are sent to the community board for a comment. And then second, CB3 has a 45-day comment period for each proposed bus stop permit. Generally, CB3 considers the types of impacts that an intercity bus stop can have on the community nearby. Our resolutions typically do one of two things. We might explain that the proposed location is unsuitable or in an oversaturated area that is already heavily impacted. Usually, CB3 is able to agree to stipulations with applicants that will be written into the permit from DOT and will be enforceable. Our operating stipulations typically require trash disposal after every bus arrival departure, specify the method of managing passengers and crowd control, and strongly encourage that bus companies have a storefront with restroom facilities for their customers. Now tonight, we will be considering 2 bus stop permit applications from Academy Bus. I believe these stops are on routes providing NYU transportation between various campuses and residence halls. If so, the impacts on the community will be quite different than what happens around an intercity bus route. So let's think about those impacts while we listen to these applications from Academy Bus. Okay, hope people have some clue about what we're, what our role in the process is now. So is Academy Bus here or perhaps NYU? I think they're both. Thank you.
Patrick is here.
There I am. I'm sorry.
If I could.
Thank you, Chairman Crane. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Valentin. Would you let?
I was just gonna say, I had a presentation, but I see that I can't share it. It's only a few slides, so I think, Patrick, we should be able to speak through it. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
If they're useful slides, we can grant you that permission, or you could just.
It's okay. I mean, it just
I
lists
could
the
just
two
mention
stops that we're talking about.
that Valentine is the person I asked to attend to discuss why NYU is doing this.
Got it.
Okay. May I
Yes.
begin? Chairman Crane, thank you. And Vice Chair Coppersmith and Susan, very nice to see you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead. Let's look at this for a second.
Yep,
Thank you,
you're
Valentine.
ready.
Right.
You're welcome.
Next slide. Are you going to talk to these?
Yes, I'm good.
Well-
Patrick, are you
well,
gonna start?
I was just going to say thank you. Valentine's with me here too, and these are the stops under review right now. But prior to this, I think appropriately, and Chairman Crane just indicated accurately, there is certainly history here. Jen's on with DOT, and we thank you. So I'd like to take a moment on the historical aspects of who we are, what we're doing, and what has happened, and what is different here than other intercity bus stops where I've been down to see you, and I've worked with Susan on a number of other transportation-related programs, having been in this business all my life here in the bus business in New York City. Having said that, and I owned and operated one of the franchise bus companies. I'm also on with Tony Lunar, who's the director of our operations here at Academy for the NYU operations. The contracted service for NYU began in the 1990s. It was operated by International Bus, became Coach USA. We're the successor company, been operating it for about 13 years. It is part of the integrated system, shuttle bus system that previously was not involved with the city bus permit systems and applications until recent years, where we're trying to integrate that portal program. And New York City DOT has done a wonderful job of trying to organize every curbside, curb to curb in every major city in the world is currently in a situation now where they're trying to take back the blacktop, which is appropriate. The US DOT authority we operate with, the New York State DOT authority, it also indicates that we work with, obviously, city DOT on a regular basis, and look forward to coordinating with these stops going forward because it's a larger system. The number of stops is extensive throughout a variety of different community boards. There are a number that have already been authorized, and there are a number pending. And these are coming out of the systems. And I explained to Susan, there will be more coming to you soon. So this takes an opportunity for us to talk about what happened in 2013 when the city bus permit system started. Did not apply to shuttle bus systems, but these systems in particular were school bus systems back in the 90s. Now it evolves into something a little more considered adults with shuttle bus systems. That's what we're here, integrating the system. So all stops throughout the whole New York City area, when you go to a corner, whether Con Ed's got a permit for this, or the sanitation department's got a permit for that, private sanitations, private contractors, and who's got the authority to do it. So it's a good program where we work with DOT on trying to do this, and that's why we're here tonight. This is the history of the shuttle bus system. Is a relatively new one, and these are the first two to become in front of you. We've been through several other community boards recently and still pending with others. And we thank you for the opportunity to present consideration for these students who operate as students getting on and off the buses in our system. And these two particular stops came out of the system. Tony, are you on with me here? On voice, Tony Luna?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Tony, thank you. We operate, would you, I made a note that didn't have the seven stops daily on one and 13 on the other. Would you kindly give the committee here the operational aspects of that? How many stops daily on each of these shuttle buses?
Okay, so the one on
that map on your next slide before we do this, because okay.
This is, there is, Valentina, there's there's a map, I think the third slide identifies the two slides, Valentine, is that, appreciate you giving us this. Here we go.
The two markers in purple indicate the stops that we're reviewing this evening.
Okay, Tony, you want to go ahead with the, give us a
Sure.
summary?
So the first stop, which is on Avenue C and 12th Street, that will be considered just 7 time points that the bus will be passing by, which will be picking up and dropping off there. And the bus stop on 3rd Avenue and 11th Street on the northeast corner, that will be 13 time points that the bus will be picking up and dropping off there.
Valentine, I'm not sure if we need this. Maybe it'd be helpful if we just have the pictures of people. I appreciate everybody seeing that. If they want to see it.
No, I just wanted to give a little background, but I'm happy to close it off
Go ahead.
so we can.
I would like
Go
to
ahead,
know.
Valentine. I'll defer to Valentine.
I would like to know just briefly, what is the larger routes on which these are? Are these part of an existing route?
Since the 1990s, yes.
Okay, so where's the ultimate destination for this? Looks like
It's a circulatory system. The individual destinations are different locations owned and operated by NYU.
Is this going between Washington Square campus and these locations, or is this going like uptown toward another?
I'll defer to Tony on that one specifically.
Yeah, it goes to the Washington Square campus. So the bus will be traveling on these 2 particular stops. It will be picking up and dropping off. And then as it turns back around, it would head towards the Washington Square Park by 715 Broadway.
Okay. All right. So we have a history with this idea. You did come to the community hall for comment ages ago, and we did not pass a resolution on it. But my memory, I was chairing at the time, my memory of it is that, okay, personally, I objected to the idea. We didn't pass a resolution, so I can't speak for the board on what happened years ago. But we objected to it because you are duplicating the M8 bus route, and you are competing with the M8 bus route. And students should be using the M8 bus like everyone else does. You know, at the time, the M8 bus was really under threat, I felt, of being canceled. And I really felt that NYU was contributing to the problem back then, but I don't think it's largely different now, even though I doubt that they would cancel the M8 bus. Why do you feel that the students shouldn't use public transportation? If I can phrase it that way. Why do you feel the need to? Yes?
Yes, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Good evening. Just by the way, my name is Valentine Goldstein. I'm with NYU in the Office of Community Engagement. I don't think the argument is that students don't use public transportation. Our students do, in fact, use a lot of public transportation. The shuttle buses, however, do provide direct access to a number of our facilities, all the way from the medical corridor, which stretches up into Murray Hill, down to downtown Brooklyn, where our engineering school and other programs are located. So I think it's used in conjunction with other existing systems. It's not something that happens alone. Our students utilize a number of different transportation systems throughout the city, and this is one of them. And as I said, it allows for direct access throughout the day. And also in the evening, we do have facilities throughout the city. The students who have class late at night, who are out, are able to use the buses to get to their residence halls. Faculty and staff use it to get to their offices. Individuals who utilize the medical facilities are able to use the buses. So again, it's one in a system of multiple transportation services that are offered throughout the city and also at NYU.
And if I may inject that this is a shuttle bus system that's similar to other shuttle bus systems within the city of New York, and it's not just it's part of the public transportation systems. All public transport was originally designed and defined by private carriers. Notwithstanding that, the private carrier position of operating within the areas is most efficient vehicle for putting people on board from point to point. Not the individual Ubers, but a bus is 55 people or 65 people on a bus. And in this particular case, in this particular era, which is not the 80s and 90s, but it's safe transport on what I think is a very important program, that we have a non-traditional or traditional campus, and we're running students around, which is not unusual in any parts of the world, and certainly not in urban areas as well. We have supplementary systems with senior citizens in northern Manhattan and other parts of Brooklyn and Queens, and shuttle bus systems where high-rise apartments come in and feed the system into the intermodal program of the subways. And that's what the buses are for, and that's what we're pleased to be the contractor for. That Academy is very prominent in New York City. in a lot of areas.
I will say, given the technology that we currently have, our operators are able to see up to the minute ridership information. So if they see that service is down in one particular area, they can adjust the number of buses that are going out on any particular route in the moment. But our buses do tend to run near or at capacity for at least part of the loop that they make.
Yeah. I'm just going to take a minor issue with using the word public transportation to describe this system. It's mass transit for sure, but the public can't use it. Now, for instance, the intercity buses, that's public transportation. It's not owned by the public, but it's providing the service to the public. Where I went to school, well, I went to NYU for graduate work, but Texas A&M, we had a shuttle bus system and it was open to the public. The public could buy into it. That's not what you're
Interesting. Okay.
Okay. But okay, anyway, Lee.
Yeah.
I respect that. Yeah.
Are these buses accessible? Are these all handicap accessible, wheelchair accessible?
Tony?
Yes, the buses that we're running with the NYU service, they are ADA accessible, that we're able to utilize for the shuttle service.
Thank you.
Michelle, and then Susan, I forget the order.
Thanks. So I don't understand why NYU students need a special type of transportation. I went to college in a non-city and also had shuttles where it made sense because there's no public transportation, but I don't see why there are full-size buses driving around Manhattan as we're just coming off of how congested our neighborhood is. Adding to that congestion. We haven't heard about how used these buses are from these folks. I'd be curious to hear that. And David, are we planning on passing a resolution here, or are we just discussing this?
We should pass a resolution. Yes.
Okay, and then I would. Is Jen still on? Jen, does it matter if we say no?
In the end, we would
I-
like to know
can
if
I-
there's a support for it.
Can I make a suggestion?
Oh, David, I think
can I
someone's
speak?
interjecting, David.
I'll let you speak afterwards, please. I've been recognizing the committee members now, but I will remember you. Susan or Michelle, you done for a moment?
Yeah, I just was asking Jen, if we say no, does it make a difference? I feel like we've discussed many times how if we reject a bus, not saying that we shouldn't, but I'd like to put it out there that our say almost never has any impact on what happens here. Is that still the way, Jen, that it's going to get approved no matter what?
Well, I'm going to say that if we've had a compelling reason why that is a bad location, we have had success in having them move it.
Okay.
But that's not what you're discussing doing, I suspect.
I think we are open. I mean, all of these applications have been submitted, as Patrick said, in conjunction with the DOT. All the stops have been reviewed. If there are issues that come up from either the DOT or from the community, I think we have been open to having that conversation about finding more suitable locations. But Michelle, in terms of your question about ridership, right now, I believe we have between 3,000 and 3,500 daily users. Pre-pandemic, it was a little bit higher. That has dropped off slightly, but not by much. It was, I think, around 4,500 pre-pandemic and up.
Susan.
So I see the NYU shuttle going east on 4th Street all the time empty. And going back to what David said at Texas A&M, would NYU consider allowing people to use it if there are seats available? Because I suspect that you're generally full in one direction, or at least that's what I see in, the 4th Street area where I live and work.
Sure, that's a good question. So you are correct. Because the buses travel in a circulatory system, as I mentioned, they are usually at or near capacity in one direction, and then they turn around and go back to their origin and pick up a new cohort of individuals, of passengers. Currently, only individuals with an active NYU ID are able to access our buses. I'm happy to take that idea back to my colleagues internally and have that discussion. Right now, we do not allow the public to use them, but again, happy to have that conversation.
And if I could just comment on Michelle's question, I don't think it's fair to say that, if we vote no, it doesn't mean anything. I think it depends on why we would vote to deny. If there's a very good reason, and there have been times in the past when there have been very good reasons. On this one, I would say no, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, because I think the best reason is that it's just completely duplicative of the existing public transportation system in New York City, which is the grandest and biggest one in the country. And I'm just looking at, ridership for buses. It's like over 1 million a day. So if you're saying that there's like 3,000 on yours, it's just so small.
Yes.
If I can't say, I'm remembering, and in fact, I think Susan pointed this out to possibly to one of you on an email thread I observed earlier today. What I remembered is that NYU had, it sounded, or wow, I'm so paraphrasing. I didn't expect this to come up 10 years later. But what I remember is that NYU felt that the parents of the students needed this kind of, felt they needed this kind of safety, or that, that this was somehow a necessary to keep the parents happy.
They wouldn't attend otherwise because their kids they wouldn't feel the kids were safe.
That is what I remember as what was said at the meeting before. And I just found that, well, a little flabbergasting. I mean, you are in New York City after all. Why would you not want to take mass transit? Or why would you think your kids should not? Anyway, is there a contractual reason of some sort that you must provide this service? I guess that's what I want to get at.
I don't have an answer to that specifically right now. I would have to look into that. I know that safety is still a primary concern for why these buses are helpful and necessary for our students, but I don't have an answer as to the contractual obligations. I would have to look into that further. I don't want to give you any misinformation.
Got it. I wouldn't want you. Lee.
Yeah, quick question, and this is for Valentine. So can any NYU student currently
Anyone, not just students, anyone in the university community, faculty, staff, administrators, anyone with an ID can utilize the buses. It's not only students.
But the students or their parents who are paying $65,000 a year, their children are eligible to take this bus.
That's correct. All students are eligible to take the bus.
Okay.
And
along with the employees from NYU don't have to take public transportation, and they get a special bus ride across our neighborhood. Correct?
Is that a question? Yeah, yes. Faculty and staff can also use the buses to travel between university facilities.
And how is that, so that just basically serves them, but doesn't do anything for our community and our residents?
Are you also asking whether we'd be open to having the public use the buses? Is that the question?
Yeah, how is this serving our community, our residents who have to go on public transportation and it not be safe and deal with congestion?
So currently,
he said the seating of 64 people on one bus. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm happy to take that option back and see if that's something that would be possible to have the public on buses. Right now, it's only for the university community, but I don't want to say definitively no, because ultimately that's not a decision that I can make at this time.
May I inject here that, and I fully respect the Community Board 3's history and concerns here, and Valentine, thank you for being here to fill in the other parts of it. But as a matter of New York City includes 5 boroughs, including Manhattan being its primary central business district. There are shuttle buses operating to ferries, to senior citizens complexes, to apartment houses, and to hospitals throughout the whole area for specific purposes. And I think I'll re-up on my lifelong history in this industry and safety that brought up with who are students. And that this is a consideration, I think, this particular service. Just want to share that.
Susan.
Okay, so first, as regard to the other buses, these are the ones coming to Community Board 3. So we can
Correct.
only comment on the ones coming to
Exactly.
Community Board 3. So in Valentine, and I think you, Patrick, just mentioned something about safety. What exactly are you protecting these students and faculty from in our community that they need to use this private bus to be safe?
Well, if I may, the number of vehicles currently in the central business district, passenger vehicles and trucks coming in for people ordering online and people and Ubers far exceeds, the efficient vehicles of a bus. But the safety element of students traveling with students, they might be 18 or 19, but they're still students. And the majority of the people getting on the bus are students. And I think safety, this is a historical element of different places. And I didn't know about Texas A&M, but I know North Carolina and many other places have different rules and setups and shuttle buses on many campuses across the country. And a big part is safety oriented, Susan.
I want to go back to the safety. I think places like Texas, it's just very different. So my son started taking the public transportation at 9. He started taking the Avenue A bus at 9.
I was a little kid too.
So what is it that you're protecting these 19 and 20-year-olds from that our 9 and 10-year-olds don't need to be prected? I'm serious. You're talking about our community. You're talking about our community.
I respect that. And we've had some conversations in recent weeks. Thank you. What we're doing is providing a vehicle that is a safe vehicle, safely operated in a safe environment. In this particular case, a contracted service, the request for NYU, that's a long-established operation since the 1990s and has become part of the system in some respects in New York City, because these people are, the riding public is not necessarily, to Chairman Crane's point, on public transport, and this is privately contracted services, but similar to the other ones I'm bringing up, whether bringing people to the ferries, whether it be to the Hudson River or the East River, or coming Upper East Side and Upper West Side into the subway systems. It's a feeder system, and that's what buses are utilized for throughout the world. And our buses, from an efficiency standpoint, for the thousands of people that are carried, although I respect the comment that it's a small number compared to the MTA, the reality is on a per passenger mile basis, it's an efficient system for sharing.
I'm sorry, I'm just stuck on the safety issue.
No, I think it's a fair question, Susan. I don't think we're saying that Community Board 3 is an unsafe area. I think, it builds on a number of different factors. It's providing service directly between facilities that may not be as close to each other. Our core campus our core footprint is predominantly in Washington Square, but we do have facilities, that are a mile plus away, and they're still considered in the core. So I hear what you're saying. I don't want to say that the community is not safe, because that's certainly not what we're saying.
Yeah, not at all.
Let me go and have a couple people from the public speak, and then we really need to wrap up. It's already 8:30. I really, I failed tonight because I dislike meetings that go past 8:30. I think it's unfair to the working public, among others. Tommy.
Yeah, where's the bus coming from on Avenue C, and where's the previous stop, and where's the stop after that? Because Avenue C, for those of us who live down here, a lot of double parking, very crowded. So where's the stop before and where's the stop after?
Tony, you on?
Sure. So can you all hear me? Make sure. Okay, so basically this particular route, it's actually approaching from 20th Street, going towards Ave C. As it's approaching Ave C, when it gets to 14th Street, according to this particular bus stop, that the bus will then continue straight to 12th to pick up a drop off, of course, and then it will then head back. It would make the turn on 10th back onto 14th to continue onto First Avenue, and then the destination will be at Washington Square Park. So in other words, so to answer your question, so the stop will be 14th, it'll be 12th. The bus will then turn back around via 10th Street, which is a street for a bus, which would then head back to 14th to head across First Avenue, and then we will then head, towards Washington Square, Washington Square Park or 715 Broadway.
Thank you, Bill.
The Avenue C stuff.
Is Tommy done? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Tommy, are you-
So in terms of like the other places that they have these shuttle buses, I'm pretty sure that most of them don't have the same kind of mass transit we have in New York City. I know when I went to college many millennia ago, that was the situation in Hartford. They didn't have enough mass transit that students could go between different campuses, so they did supply a shuttle bus. I'm sure that's not true in New York. And I used to teach at CUNY before I retired, the City University, and the City University students are about the same age as the NYU students, and they have to traverse much longer, spaces in New York between different campuses, and they do. So I don't think that the NYU students are less capable than the CUNY students. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee, what do we want to do with this? I'm gonna like to take a quick straw poll. If you just want to unmute and say, what do you think we should do? You could be very brief, like yes or no, or you could be something more nuanced, but keep it brief. If we can just.
Can I say something? Can I say something?
Yes, you may. I'm sorry. I forgot.
Thank you very much. Listen, I think that it's a great idea because it also gives the opportunity for the children, the future children that live in the projects, okay, and public housing, the opportunity to also be able to have future ridership there. Okay, so for me, if it's left up to me, I think it's a wonderful idea.
Thank you. Okay, so committee, what do you think we can do tonight? Someone want to unmute? Don't make me call your names.
I don't support this, if that wasn't clear. This just seems like, I think Bill's point about CUNY students being perfectly capable of transversing the city's sans private transportation is a great one. There are lots of universities in this city. They don't all get their own private 64-person shuttles that go through our already congested neighborhood.
I agree. I know I don't support this either. It's not a great idea. It's just a convenient idea for a group of people. It's New York City. We're promoting health and wellness and walking and biking. And now we're getting a 64-person giant bus where Ave C E residents just lost 100 spaces of parking to put in, a bike lane and to keep the congestion out. That just doesn't make sense to me. Walk, take the bus, 14th Street right there, a whole bus system.
Thanks. Lee, did you unmute?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I guess I sort of understand if I'm paying $65,000 a year for my kids to go to NYU, I guess I'd want a luxury ride for them. I was sort of in favor of this before the meeting, but I'm sorry, this is with the mass transit. If you were going to Washington Heights campuses, if you were going to other campuses far out in a transit desert in Brooklyn, I'd say, yeah, but you're talking about easily accessible on mass transit. This is just, no, David, I'm opposed to this.
Okay, before I recognize Paul, let me make it clear, because I think maybe the committee doesn't realize that these routes already exist. And they're talking about adding 2 stops on existing routes, and now they're being told to go through this permit process for the additional stops, but it's a minor detail. Paul, and then Wendy.
Why don't you go to the committee first before I say?
Wendy.
Yeah, I agreed. It seems a little bit like overkill because you did say it's like a duplication of the M8 bus route. And then I went to, when I was in college, I had to take a whole train and 2 buses to get there. So just having a 1 bus seems a little overkill.
Paul.
It's good to be back. I'm sorry, I just jumped on. I don't see the efficacy in adding bus stops at Ave C at all. So that's, from what I've heard, I just don't see it in terms of the NYU bus lane.
Yeah, and I was indiscreet and I revealed what I thought about it too. So is there another committee member here who wants to speak? I don't think there's another one. Does someone want to make a motion? We can add to it. We can just get us started if you want.
Motion to deny.
Okay,
Second.
okay. So Wendy, can you put up a document? We'll just start drafting this. What I think we need to say is that it's competition with the with mass transit, with the MTA, NYCT bus routes. When he described just now the actual route, the before and after part, that was clarifying to me, it's not really just the M8. It is a loop up 20th around Stuytown down C. So it's a combination of routes, but it's still doable by buses. So we can say that it's duplicate. We shouldn't specify which routes, but it is duplicating what can be done on public transit. I'm sorry, can we get a document up? Wendy, I'm not pressuring you, but it's providing service that duplicates portions of mass transit, of MTA provided public transit. It's not just NYCT, which is the buses, but it's also the subways. They're talking about, you know, like going down to the Metro Tech Center where the new engineering. Wow, I don't know how new it is. Susan?
You might want to also mention that we have an extensive city bike installations in the area that are perfectly suited for travel between NYU campuses and residences.
Mm-hmm. So the point of this whereas has got to be clearly stating that it is that by providing these transportation services, NYU is unnecessarily reducing demand on the public transit system, including the things the things are listed there.
While causing congestion and pollution.
While causing congestion and pollution. Yep.
Or adding to congestion and pollution.
You know, we,
sorry guys,
the public are not as, we are more resource constrained than NYU. And what happens is about every 3 months, 6 months, we get a letter at the community board saying, we've looked at the number of riders on this bus route and we are going to make these changes. And very, very often, maybe the majority of the time, I bet, we are going to reduce bus service by increasing headroom. That is what we don't want to happen. And NYU is making that situation worse by providing services so their students don't have to step onto mass transit.
I'd say about 99% of them letters.
They've now got it down maybe to bare bones in some places. Like I say, I haven't been chairing for a while. I don't see those letters, but that is what the effect is, you know, and kind of just like, you know, whatever.
I'm not exactly sure how to word this. Whereas by providing these services, NYU would be
by providing privately contracted transportation service, contracted transportation services for NYU students, faculty, and employees.
Whoa.
Better you than me.
And when you
students, faculty, and employees. Those technically faculty and employees, but that captures what he was saying earlier, or I forget who said it. By providing it, NYU is diverting demand away from available public transportation options. Yeah, including, and then those two items, if you can wordsmith those. And MTA provided subway and bus services, routes, provided subway and bus routes, correct? And the city bike system. Yeah, extensive, that sounds good, yeah. Oh, put system there, yeah. Okay, okay, so, and let's go ahead and add a whereas. If we can briefly, in a sentence, describe what I explained, that the drop in demand shows up, or it would be very helpful if that demand would show up in MTA/NYCT ridership. That's what they call it. Whereas it would be beneficial to the community if that NYU demand showed up in the ridership. I guess we call them studies or counts, conducted regularly by the MTA/NYCT.
Okay.
New York City Transit, yeah, get rid of the V in front of that, I think, by MTA/NYCT. Those ridership numbers determine adjustments, and then like an M dash, usually D reductions in public transit service. Usually reductions and then another M dash. Usually reductions, yeah, in
public.
Yeah, that kind of captures what's going on and what MIU is contributing to. Okay, so then I think we need to, all right, we need one clause at the top, which says, I think, whereas NYC maybe is dividing the first one. Oh, I wish I had drafted this before. So sorry, people. Because I knew where we were going, where I wanted to go. Whereas NYU, I want to say that they have an existing system and that they are, and that a DOT application for a curbside bus loading unloading permit. Anyway, okay, so we can make that a little meatier, a little clearer. We'll put that as the very first one. NYU has an existing transportation service, transportation service, there you go, with shuttle routes through the CB3 district, is that what we call it? The CB3 district and beyond, connecting NYU campuses and residence halls.
NYU facilities and service
There you go,
buildings.
facilities and residence halls, yeah.
What's at Avenue C? What residence halls at Avenue C?
Well, there's a lot of people living like my building.
Residents, I would just say residences.
Residences, okay, yeah. I know one of those is almost directly outside of one of their dorms, but okay, yes. Okay, period. They have applied for a DOT permit for bus loading, unloading at the location of ... We'll copy that in from the two locations.
I'll copy those in later on.
Yeah, thank you. And rather than they, let's say, what's the name? Academy Bus LLC, comma, who provide that service to NYU. Contracted service to NYU, yeah. Comma, okay. There we go. Is there anything else you want to say besides therefore be it resolved? CB3.
Pollution and congestion.
Thank you. Blah, blah,
Should I
blah.
be with another whereas?
At the bottom, yes, correct. Whereas CB3, we've had boilerplate language for this in the past, but there's a, it's both congestion and pollution. They are using, from their application, they are using least polluting options, but they are still diesel. Is that correct? NYU or Academy? I believe it is. I'm almost sure. There's no technology for buses that I believe that are available that proven and reliable. Whereas, okay, so whereas these bus traffic add to the congestion and pollution, these shuttle buses.
From these shuttle buses then?
Bus traffic from the shuttle buses, yeah, add to congestion and pollution.
In the district?
In the district, thank you. Yeah, we don't want to stick it here necessarily, but I did go and look at the M8 schedules and compared them with the schedules that I found online for that route. And they're not providing the service because they don't get frequent enough service on the M8. I'll just say that. I totally understand the convenience argument, however. There's this add to congestion and pollution in the district, which has
Let me just go.
it's asthma. Asthma is the problem, which has elevated incidence of asthma. I don't know the stats on that, but going way back, the Lower East Side has higher incidence of asthma. I don't want to put the details here, but generally you measure that by looking at hospitalization inputs. And even with the fact that our local community health clinics do not register with that system, it still looks like we've got elevated asthma problems. But has elevated instance of asthma, or is there a better way to say that?
Just leave it there. I'm not sure that that whole area is high in asthma. I think the eastern part is.
On and off, yeah.
Maybe just like which has contributed to like health problems within like Lower Manhattan in general.
Yeah, I can say and pollution, which contributes to public health problems.
Mm-hmm. Is that okay with you, David?
Yep, sounds good. And Michelle, you have something you want to add or say?
I was just gonna say in the first sentence, instead of CB3 district, just community district 3.
Community district, thank you.
Wait, where?
At the very first,
here, okay.
C3 district, it should say community district 3.
Community. Okay.
Yeah. And so now at the end, therefore be it resolved. And I want to say somehow DOT should not issue permit for the bus loading and unloading because NYU should not be providing this service. How can we put that?
Just that way.
Okay, all right. DOT should not, therefore be resolved. CB3 recommends that DOT does not approve of these permits for curbside loading, unloading. Because the whole transportation service is unnecessary and harmful to community district 3, because the whole transportation system operated by Academy Bus for NYU is unnecessary and harmful to community district 3 residents, or just community district 3?
Just leave it there.
3 period. Is unnecessary and harmful to. Yeah. So this is the resolution we didn't pass 10 years ago because, we didn't have to. At the time, I appreciated that you came to us and all that, but you went ahead and did it anyway. is there anybody who wants to comment on this? Make changes to it? You want to go to a vote on this? Hearing no input?
Let's
Ready to
vote.
take a vote.
Just say
Next
roll-
time add a basketball court and I could get.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Should I get you last as well?
Yes, please.
Michelle,
Yes.
Wendy Lee, yes. Lee Berman,
Yes.
Tariq Durrell. Still don't see him. And Kenyal Hernandez.
Yes.
Okay. David Crane,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Okay, I really apologize to the people who brought the Block Association. I'm so rusty that I forgot that I want to do those kinds of small things either at the very beginning or after we get the big kahuna out of the way. So I should have done you certainly before the NYU bus. Are you still here? Is the applicant for, I feel terrible if the University Settlement, Lunar New Year and Family and Friends group is not here?
I don't know if she ever showed up.
Well, I still feel bad because
I don't think she ever showed up.
I understand. Well, that's unfortunate unless someone here is prepared to speak about it. Okay, block associations, explain what happens here is we typically, for block association parties that have not, or block parties that have not been happening for a long period of time, we ask them to come before us because it's new. Where is it? Et cetera. You know, have you coordinated? And we talk through that with them. And then usually we'll come up with a simple resolution approving it. Sometimes we will come up with a resolution or an agreement that they shouldn't do it there or that they need to discuss, let's say, with a local precinct before they come back to us. We can't have that conversation because they're not here unless someone knows exactly what this is going to be.
We don't. It's a new thing. Deidre emailed her quite a few times and couldn't get a response to try and confirm that she would be here tonight.
Okay, so it's likely then, it's possible that the effort didn't really get off the ground, or it's very casual. I think that we need to pass a resolution, sorry? Oh,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Either that the effort didn't really get off the ground for this, or it's a very small casual affair, and you know, for one reason or the other, they're not here. I don't think that we have to pass a resolution, I think, saying that they were not here tonight. Would you agree with me, Susan?
Sure.
You know, it's like we've been asked for comment by an agency, right?
Well, yes, we can approve, disapprove, or abstain. If you don't want to vote, I just won't go in the system and approve anything.
Eldridge Street between Rivington and Delancey Street.
The whole thing would have been fine if they were here, but they're not here.
Yeah, I think that I'm comfortable. Committee? I was about to say I'm comfortable abstaining, which means we wouldn't send anything up to the board either. We would just remain silent on it.
I'll abstain.
Is there anyone?
I agree. We don't know the time or anything, so.
Well, no,
Right.
that's not the issue. We're not disapproving, we're abstaining.
Right. The suggestion here is we can just say nothing because we really don't think there could be a problem with this particular location. And well, I don't even think that location could be a problem anytime. And it was
Well,
odd.
well, actually, I would dispute that. There's a lot of construction going on right there. Like a ton.
It's been vetted, I believe, by SAPO. So what I am saying, if you don't vote, I am not going in the system to do anything. I'm not abstaining. Because I abstain when someone comes to us too late to put it on the agenda, then I abstain and say there's not enough time. I'm not abstaining. I'm just not doing anything.
Okay, I see. You had three options if you enter something, but we would just enter nothing. Okay, Michelle, you say that there is a lot of construction at that location. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, can't we just have them come back next month if they really want to do this?
Just not enough time.
It's April is their event. It gets pretty tight.
We can't vote at the end of March and give them approval. It's too late.
I don't really understand our options. Are we just, like, it seems like abstaining is not actually an option. I don't know what we're doing. Should we just disprove it?
Abstain is an action. What we're suggesting is no action.
So no action.
Or we-
Okay,
Right.
so I'm taking no action.
But the other option, Michelle, would be to say we disapprove of it because the applicant wasn't here tonight and we do want to discuss concerns with
Right.
what you mentioned.
But there's no point because there's no time to do it next month. So I might as well just do no action, right?
No, that's generally, the precedent has always been to vote to deny because they didn't appear. That's a legitimate, very legitimate thing to do. And it's appropriate, and it tells SAPO that they didn't care enough, to come to the board and give us a package.
I think we should do it, Susan. Michelle, if you believe that if you have a concern about all the construction there, and I blanked on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the Rivington house is, right there on that corner. And it seems like it's on a Friday. So I would assume that there would be construction going on. I don't know. I mean, it's just a kind of a mess over there. So.
Okay, let's bring up a document and draft this, please. Yes, it'll be to deny them. So we would start out with whereas,
David, the resolution's not going anywhere. So, so you could be very, very brief because I'm just going to go in the system and put deny.
Okay, wow, it's that brief. Okay, so CB3 is the word deny that you put in, approve or deny, or approve or
I'm
disapprove.
going to put deny due to non-appearance.
Deny this applicant, so deny, cut and paste, University Settlement, New Year Family and Friends Community request to have a block party on April 22nd on Eldridge between Rivington and Delancey Street. I do think we need a sentence here explaining why to our own board members who have to vote on this. So
You
following
don't, it's
that,
not going anywhere. Oh, I see.
board members
So,
Eldridge
Eldridge,
add one sentence that says the applicant did not appear before the committee, which would have discussed ongoing construction at that
I
location.
don't believe there's any construction on that block. That's the block in front of University Settlement. And I don't believe there's any construction on that.
Well, there's a
block.
lot at the corner, right, where they're putting. in
That
the-
was a block, but that's not on Eldridge. It is not even going to the corner of Eldridge. It's on Forsyth, it's between Forsyth and Eldridge. It would not interfere. It really wouldn't. It's right in front of their facility is where they want to do it.
I see what you're saying. All right, when I go there, it's yeah, I'm biking through and it's very evident that there's a huge construction thing. In fact, they don't even want you to go through. But it is not Eldridge, it's on
It's on Rivington and on Forsyth.
Rivington and Forsyth is where that is. Okay, to discuss the proposal period, that's sufficient. Okay, so folks.
I
if you
missed out
vote-
on a bit of the wording, like request of a block party on April 22nd on Eldridge Street and
Between Rivington Street and Delancey Street, on Eldridge Street between Rivington and Delancey Streets.
I would just say due to non-appearance.
Can they reapply after this or that?
They
or
don't
that
have
they-
enough time.
They don't, it's not clear what the agency will do with this, right? It's not like we have,
Oh, they probably won't approve it. It's very possible they decided not to have their block party and didn't give us the courtesy of telling us. Because I'm telling you, Deidre's emailed and called the woman several times.
this happens pretty regularly with block associations, that either that happens like Susan is saying, or
Okay.
it was just a really casual group that,
This is University Settlements.
I know, but the other time that this typically happens is when it's a smaller group that is a little too casual about the fact that there's bureaucratic requests going on. But this
Okay.
is University Settlement, so I think that they're not planning on doing it. And that's all. We don't need to therefore be resolved.
Oh, okay.
It's not even a whereas, just cut the wires on the front, and I think it's sufficient. Any more comment from committee? Or I guess, is there anyone from the public who wanted to speak? Ready to vote?
Are we ever gonna get to sanitation?
There's no sanitation items on the agenda tonight. We
If
typically.
you have a, as I say, if they have a sanitation problem, they should email the community board office.
So info@cb3manhattan.org. If you're able to email the office, that's helpful.
MN03
Oh, I'm sorry.
at cb.nyc.gov.
Can we stick that in the public chat?
Yes. It doesn't go to everyone.
Let's move on. It's not necessary. She's on the phone.
Well, no, I do want to make sure she has the email.
I don't think you guys remember who that is. She was on other meetings. Let's just continue.
Michelle, I don't think, I really think we have to give people the option of making sure they have the address to make a
Yeah.
complaint.
Well, I believe she does. She'll speak up if she doesn't.
Okay,
If she
so
didn't catch it.
if I could just repeat, MN03 at cb.nyc.gov.
So let's take a vote on this motion. Wendy, you want to take that?
Michelle,
Yes.
Wendy Lee, yes. Lee Berman,
Yes.
Tariq Durrell, I still don't see him. And Kenyelle,
Yes.
David Crane,
Yes.
thank you very much.
So is that the end of all of our business? I think it is. Okay. So if there's no objection to adjourning the meeting, we will do that. There's no objection. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you. I really apologize. This went past 9 o'clock. I completely failed.